As a renowned Islamic scholar, transformational speaker, teacher, and mentor, Abdul Fattah Adeyemi has inspired countless lives with his insightful lectures and compassionate guidance. Connect with a community of like-minded individuals seeking knowledge and achieving greatness.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. My name is Abdul Fattah Adeyemi and I welcome all of us to the discussion for today. I want us to look at some of the generations of youth, past and present. Let us compare their lives. Let us look at what they did in the past and what is happening now. And then we'll see the youth of today. Of course, they are the ones this discussion is all about. What can they learn from the youth of yesterday? And the youth of tomorrow, the one we call leaders of tomorrow, what can they learn from the youth of today? Let's look at the list of the primary generations, and we pick it from the 20th up until 21st centuries, with the focus on the distinguishing characteristics in morality, the approach to life, and their relationship with technology. We look at it in those three broad perspectives because it is crucial to remember that these are broad generalizations. And what I want to tell you now, I'm generalizing. There are different youths of different ages, there are individual differences, there will be significant individual variation within each cohort that I'm going to mention. And you should also know that these are not universal. These are variations, and there are exceptions, and there are also cultural contexts to the descriptions and classifications of these generations. Number one is the silent generation. These were the people that were born between 1928 to 1945. I doubt if any of them is still alive now, but they had their own outlook on life. Their own outlook was defined by duty, by sacrifice, and adherence to traditional structures. They valued financial and social stability. They respect authority, especially the government, the Muslims amongst them, anything the Khalifa says, anything the Muslim community says, anything the Imam says. For those who are not Muslims, they also follow the authorities. There was that respect for authorities, including parental authorities. And they believed in waste not, want not mentality. That time, morality was often seen in black and white terms. This is good or that is bad. There was no gray area. There was no, okay, maybe and maybe not. Everybody, at least to some extent, knew that some things were good and some things were bad. Their approach to life was pragmatic. They were very endurant, if there's anything like that. And they did not like to take risks. The focus was on building a secure life, supporting a family, and contributing to the community in their own way. The modest lifestyle was a central goal. You have a house, a car, and a better life for your children. That's all that mattered at that time. But what of technology and evolution as at then? They witnessed the most dramatic technological shift in history, from radio and propeller planes to the dawn of television and the jet age. However, they adapted to technology, but they did not drive its creation in their youth. It was often seen as a tool for progress and convenience and nothing more. So you use it if you want to use it. You leave it if you don't have it. Watching TV then was, it was something for few. And if one person has it in the whole neighborhood will come and watch TV. And after the show is done, everybody goes back to their lives. It was not a do or die thing that you must have it or things like that, especially when it comes to matters of technology. There was radio stations and stuff like that. And then few people were able to travel by plane those days. When I say those days, I'm not talking about 200 years ago. I'm just talking about something around 1928 to 1945. Let's look at another one after that one now. We still have another generation what do they call these ones? We call them the baby boomers. Yes, that one was from around 1946 to 1964. Now you can still see some people that were born within that time. Some people were born around that 1960 something. So this one were the baby boomers. What was their outlook on life? Well, initially they were idealistic. They challenged the traditional values of their parents. Somebody wants to marry somebody, the parents say you cannot marry, then they elope, they get angry, they do what they want to do. This kind of boldness was beginning to come out around those times. So they championed social causes, peace, equality, environmentalism, and they promoted a culture of individualism and self-expression. The mantra was don't trust anyone over 30. They had their own sense of self then, and then everybody wanted to express themselves in whatever way they want to express themselves. People distinguished themselves due to some talents they had or some trade they prefer, not necessarily following up on the trade or business of your family. You want to do your own business by yourself. And what was their approach to life then? They were optimistic and they were competitive. They believed in having it all, and they had a redefined work-life balance. They believe in work. Yes, work for yourself, make your own money. Don't wait for your parents' wealth to inherit. Then you hear stories of somebody who was from a wealthy family, he decided to break out. He went to the villages or to the cities, went to look for livelihood. A child of a very rich person, prominent person, or even a child of a king, a prince, will go out, go do many jobs so that he can make life for himself. He gets rich, and then he comes back home. Those kind of stories were, we have heard before. So these were their outlooks then. They were people who were buying things, and whatever money you had, you could show people that you have arisen by the kind of things you buy and the kind of things you do and the kind of place that you live. So people lived, they moved away from the villages, and there was a rush for the cities. People who were born between 1946 and 1964, they understand what we are talking about. But when it came to technology, they were the first television generation. They witnessed the moon landing live, the one that they said happened in the Western world, and they saw the rise of personal computers in their workplaces. Yes, there used to be the desktop and what have you, and then PCs started coming up, and if you could sit behind a computer, you were seen as well educated, sophisticated, and what have you. They adapted to digital technology in adulthood. It didn't start with them when they were small. They were already adult before these things started coming in. And many of them were becoming proficient in this technology. But they are often characterized by a learning curve rather than innate fluency. You have to learn it, you have to progress in it. Imagine somebody who was a typist, a secretary, who was using that old typewriting machine, and suddenly they changed that with a motherboard, with a keyboard, and the person had to adapt to having typed and typed to some end without having to shift that thing that makes that ding noise like that. You remember these things, those who were alive by that time, or those who were old enough to understand this era of manual typewriter. That was their own technology then. And when the keyboards came around, it was another thing entirely. I could imagine the kind of screen they were using then, the kind of television spec, that kind of old TV. That was what the monitor looked like at that time. It would be blinking and blinking at you profusely. Allahu Akbar. Then, after that generation, came another generation that we call Generation X. All of us are familiar with this. Generation X are those born within 1965 to 1980. Now, take note of it. If you are born 1970, 1975, 78, 79, 1980, you are Generation X. And I believe many of you listening to me now, you belong to this generation. Generation X. What was their outlook? They were cynical, they were skeptical, and they enjoyed self-reliance. They wanted to do things on their own. I have to go to school, I have to get a job, I have to take care of myself. They have seen the failed idealism of the boomer parents. they distrusted large institutions. This is another thing about them. They knew where their parents failed. I'm talking about 1965 to 1980. The parent that you thought was well-to-do, it was when you started growing up that you actually realized that they were actually poor. Subhanallah. You thought everything was okay then. Few clothes, few broken toys. You share football with your neighbors. You never had your own things per se. As you were growing up, then you started realizing that they were actually poor people. The kind of schools you went to then, you thought your teachers, your principals or headmasters with the bicycle, you thought that was all. Then later you realized that so nobody had a car. All the teachers that taught me in primary school, none of them had a car. Subhanallah. Then you began to realize that what kind of people are these? Then the people between 1965 and 1980, they started becoming self-reliant and they began to distrust their government. They don't trust government. They don't trust corporations. They have seen their own parents work and work and work with the government. By the time they leave the government services, they left with virtually nothing. They didn't have anything. Many of them that had roofs above their head, it was just that, roofs above their head. You can't call that house per se. Subhanallah. It was a home actually. Yes, it was home. It was roof above the head. But you can't call it a house by the standard of the kind of houses that you now get to see nowadays at your own adult age. Subhanallah. So everybody began to hate the government for cheating on the pensioners, for not taking good care of them, for wasting their lives, and you are beginning to borrow yourself some senses that you don't want to be like them. I'm talking about Generation X now. Their morality became more relative and pragmatic. They value authenticity above all. They have stopped deceiving themselves. And that is why some part of this generation, by the time they reached where they were going to retire from job, they started adding some other businesses to what they were doing. Somebody will be doing government work. I'm talking about Nigerian context now, or some part of Africa where this civil service thing is so prevalent. You see somebody who will go to civil service office, he will be selling shoes, selling bags, selling plates, sideways, side hustles. Allahu Akbar. Ya salam. That's Generation X there for you. Gen X for short. What was their approach to life? Well, they were independent and resourceful on their own. They pioneered the concept of work to live rather than live to work. They began to borrow themselves some senses that how can we just be living to work? Rather, we are supposed to work so that we can have a life. They began to prioritize a better work-life balance and they began to prioritize family time. They are often seen as the entrepreneurial bridge between the analog and the digital world. They witness it all. From the analog age to the digital world, Gen X were very fortunate to witness that. And so when it comes to technology, the last generation to know an analog childhood, that is Gen X. They were the last to know an analog childhood and the first to embrace the digital revolution in young adulthood. They adapted to the internet. In fact, it was a lot of adaptation. They adapted to email. They no longer go to post offices to physically post letters. In fact, I wonder how we survived. You write a letter, it's going to be 3 months before it reaches the other end. The person replies another 3 months before it got back to you. But when the internet came and email thing came, it was like, thank God, at last we can communicate. And then they were the people who benefited from the early mobile phones. You know, those Sorghum, what are the names? Nokia. Those kind of phones that you carry and then you begin to develop muscle on your arms because they were so heavy. It was as if you are doing some, you know what I mean now? So somehow you witness all of that one, some very awkward ringtones from those phones, ya salam. Some ringtones that will give you headache, some ringtones that will make you feel as if some ancestors are making some noise in form of birds in the distance. Ya Allah. So this Gen X, they witnessed the evolution of telephone from that hand receiver. You remember that one, the one you have to turn a dial, as in literally you dial. That is, you turn something that goes round and pick your numbers with your finger one after the other. And then the early mobile phones, they are technology agile, but they can remember a life without technology. This is one thing about Gen X. They remember life without technology. They wonder, how did we survive those days? How did we manage those days? How were we able to manage, a life without telephone, without a mobile phone? There was a facsimile machine also those days. For those who remember, they say they are sending fax. And if you wanted to send fax, then you go to a business center. Then the upsurge of business centers started with these Gen X people. People were opening business centers. You go there, you pay, you buy some time to browse the net. And what were you actually browsing? The browsers there were so, like Fox browsers. There were no Google that time. But all of this browse, you buy time, they give you a piece of paper, they point some things, and the guys who are operating the business centers, internet center, they were feeling cool as if they knew everything. You go there, you spend hours, sometimes you wait in turn. We really suffered those days. Actually, as I'm beginning to confess that I belong to that Gen X, subhanallah. May Allah forgive us for all of the suffering we went through that time. All right, that was Gen X, born between 1965 to 1980. Now, let's go to the millennials now, the Gen Y, Generation Y. When we say Y2K, we're talking about 2000. So Gen Y, they call them Gen Y, the millennials. I believe some Gen X also witnessed this millennium bug. That stupid thing they bothered our head with those days. Astaghfirullah, forgive me for saying that. The millennials, for short, they were those born between 1981 and 1996. Yes, if you were born between 1981 to 1996, you belong to the millennials, Gen Y. The context of their existence, that was the era of 9/11, September 11, if you remember. There was also a great recession that time. Many countries, including developed countries, were complaining of recession, economic crush down, economic meltdown, and so on and so forth. And of course, there was the rapid rise of the internet that time. What was the morality of the 1981 to 1996 people, the Gen Y? They are often described as idealistic and pragmatic simultaneously. They have ideas and they're also practical. You can imagine that kind of paradox. They value diversity, they value inclusion and social justice. They are cause-driven and they seek meaning and purpose in their work and consumption. They want to know, why am I even doing this? Morality is heavily influenced by a global connected perspective. They had watched too much TV, and whatever is being done in one country, they want to replicate it in their own country. I remember vividly some of the young people then, they will watch a particular movie, they want to behave like a character in that movie, even when they know absolutely nothing about that character and about the meaning of the acts that they were seeing. Their approach to life was ambitious, but going to school, getting admission, it was very difficult for them. And they grew up in a challenging economy. I'm generalizing now. Not all countries, but many countries, they had challenges in the economy. These Gen Y people, they delayed traditional milestones like marriage and home ownership. These were the people that would live 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, they are still single. Did you notice that those born between 1981 to 1996, they are the first generation of people that you see that they don't get married in good time? Either they say they are going to school, or they want to get a job, or they want to get a better job, or they want to acquire some material things, they want to have some money, they want to buy a car before they get married. They have all of these things, spelled out in their head. So to own a house now, they prefer to rent because they can't even afford the kind of houses that people have in place. Unlike those other generations of the past who felt what the first thing that a young man should do would be to go rent a house and possibly build a house or buy a house. But this generation now, they are still with their parents. Subhanallah. They are still with their parents. Owning a house is not such a priority to them, and getting married is something that is difficult for them, maybe deliberately or because of the kind of economy or the kind of cultural or acculturation or adulteration that they have. I'm using those words deliberately. Maybe they learn that some cultures is out of fat to get married so soon. You'll be 30 years old. They ask you, "Are you married?" You say, "I'm still searching." And those kind of things, rather than some people feel terrible about it, they think, well, it is life. There's nothing we can do about it. So they seek constant feedbacks and collaboration. That's part of their own outlook on life. They want things to the feedbacks they get is what actually determine their values in life. They don't evolve any particular value by themselves. They actually don't know what they want, but when they eventually know what they want is actually what other people like them want. So they don't have particularly unique ideas of their own. It is what their friends do that they also want to do. And that is why when it comes to marriage or wedding and stuff like that, this Gen Y, these millennials, they want to have the kind of wedding that their friends had, and they would rather delay till 35 to get that than to get married at 25 without it. Get it? Now, what was their approach to technology? They were the first digital natives. They adopted the internet, the social media wholeheartedly. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and smartphones, they adopted all of these things as young adults. They were very small when these things were already there, and they didn't have much experiences of the lives of the past. However, they were the first natives. They took it wholeheartedly. Technology is an integrated, essential part of their social and professional lives, not an add on. You know what I mean by that? It is part and parcel of their life. If you don't know how to use the computer, then you are completely left behind. You are not part of them. If you didn't have a Facebook account and you were born around 1996 and you are still alive now, you don't have a Facebook account, it is better that you go back to the village. Nobody will believe you. You don't have Facebook account, you don't have email account, you are not on TikTok or what have you. Then people will wonder what is wrong with you. So those were the millennials, we used to call them. After the millennials, guess who we have next? We have Gen Z. Yeah, Generation Z, the one you call Gen Z. These were the people born between 1997 to 2012. Allahu Akbar. Yes, they were the ones who were there with the social media. Gen Z. You have a lot of them around you now. Many of you listening to me now, you even have your own children who belong to this Gen Z. And in some countries, the youth began dropping out of school to pursue other things that could fetch them a better lifestyle. It is this generation that you see them prefer music, singing, dancing, and entertainment and content creation. They prefer these things to going to school. Somehow, they also prefer IT-related occupations. They go into fashion and many other entrepreneurial experimentations. Well, for some of them, school is a scam. That is honestly, is it Gen Z people that I hear them say that schooling is a scam? Whatever made them to think like that? Because they have seen people who have gone to school and they didn't really make much out of it. They have seen the flaws of the education as designed by the adults. They see that this educational thing is just to keep us locked up in school for so many years. And when we come out, they want us to be looking for the jobs that are not available. These parents are scammers. They believe they are being robbed by these parents, by the adults who told them and promised them that once they go to school, there will be no problems in their lives. Unfortunately, these young people, they have seen through the lies and the deceptions of their parents, of the adults. And so some of them actually believe that school is a scam. Paradoxically, some among these youth, they believe, this is like the opposite of them now. They believe that one degree is not even enough. These ones will go to school, go to school, go to school. Their education become very fast. A very young person will be having PhD in all sorts of fields. Allah Akbar. Those of us who did PhD as adults, you get to see age mate of your children who is doing PhD like you. And it's so surprising. Gen Z, they have two tribes. The first tribe are those who believe that schooling is a scam. The other tribe are those who believe that school is everything. They will not just go to school in their country, they look for school outside their countries. Allah Akbar. They have degree in this one, degree in that one, masters in this field, masters in that field, then PhDs in 1, 2, 3 fields. By the time they return back to their countries, then they wonder, so where am I going to work? What am I going to do? Allah Akbar. You see a child will have PhD and the child will still be at home not knowing what to do with it. However, the smart ones amongst them, they have gone into IT-related fields. They decide to work online. They are also tired of 9 to 5. In fact, they don't want to do 9 to 5. You are going to use a rope to tie them down before they can sit down in an office. They don't want to sit down in an office. Well, except there is AC and official cars attached. They don't want to do the kind of office things that their parents did. So these Gen Z people, they are so enigmatic. There's a lot about them that we are still studying up till now. What are their morality and their outlook on life? Well, they are deeply pragmatic. They don't want ideas. They don't want theories. They want things that can work well for them. They are very progressive. Some of them, they do some businesses. They know the things to do. They go into digital economy and they make their own money from it at the spite of the parents. You know what I mean by that? In spite of their parents, because the parents, they're like, what do you have? When the parents are there boasting of wealth, they look at their parents and be like, what do you really have? You don't have nothing. And they don't even care about your wealth. Some of them, I'm saying some of them are very progressive. Before you know it, sharp, they do 1 or 2 things and they have money in their account. And you wonder, but at your age, how can you have so much money in your account? The other problem is, what do you want to use the money for? That's a discussion for another time. Then these young people, the Gen Z, they are activist oriented. They will picket, they will riot, they will go out in the street, they will pass information to themselves, and they have been used in some instances to even topple government. They create unrest among these youth. Some people manipulate them. That's the other side of it. They are not matured enough to know the difference between being manipulated and actually fighting for their right. They don't want to be patient, and some people take advantage of this haste that they have. You see, issues like climate change is important to them. Mental health, this Gen Z, they are the ones that are talking about that. They say, well, I don't want the toxic environment. This thing is compromising my mental health. I can't stay in this relationship. It is too toxic for me. My partner is very narcissistic. My parents are toxic people. This is the Gen Z people that they rely so much on these terms and words. And these things are central to their worldviews. In some countries, matters of identity, gender, sexuality, including race, were very serious matters to have to deal with. In some countries, all of these gender things, gender equality is there, but gender identity is another problem that some of them are battling with in some countries. It's a very serious issue. They value authenticity. They value transparency. They don't like you to deceive them. You deceive them once, you cannot deceive them the second time. And they value social responsibility from brands and institutions. Their morality is fluid and highly individualized. It is very difficult for you to tell them what they don't want to hear. It's very difficult for you to reach them where they are not present. And when it comes to morality, well, it takes special grace of Allah for them to agree with you that actually having intimacy with somebody you have not married is a sin. They don't think it's a sin anymore. I'm talking about some of them. They don't think it's a sin, and they think fornication is just affair. They say we're having an affair. They don't call it fornication, and it's not a taboo to them to have many boyfriends if it's a girl, and to have many girlfriends if it's a boy. It's not a big deal to them. Ya salam. I'm talking about Gen Z. What are their approaches to life? There's a good side of it. entrepreneurial and financially cautious. They are very entrepreneurial. They know what they are doing. I've seen a Gen Z who actually owns a bakery as we speak now. And that one was born between 1997 and this 2012 we are talking about. They have seen the struggles of millennials and they are more risk averse in their career planning. They don't like to take stupid risks. They don't want to devote a whole of a lifetime studying a particular course that at the end of their schooling, there will be no job to use that course for. They don't want to do that. And that's why you think they are lazy, and that's why you think they don't like school. They have already seen that these schools will not yield them anything. So Gen Z, they are very cautious about these risks that people take. They are true realists. They focus on practical solutions to things. And then their mental well-being is a stated priority, not a taboo. It is something they care so much about. And they would rather withdraw to their shelves or stick onto their phones than for them to allow you to mess with their heads. Now, talking about the technology and these Gen Z people, they are the true mobile first digital natives. They have never known a world without the internet, without on-demand entertainment. They never knew a world without the social media. In fact, some of them were born into the social media. The day some of them were born like this, their photographs were taken and shared with people on the Facebook. Right there and then, before they reached 1 hour of birth, they're already trending on the social media. Hey, I've got a new bouncing baby. And then the mother is still in the labor ward. They're still cleaning for her. Somebody already snapped the baby and post on the on Facebook and post on Instagram. Subhanallah. These Gen Z people, they have never known a world without all of these things. They witness the transitions of entertainment gadgets, and there's some of them from the time they were born, there was no longer VHS anymore. There was no CD, there was no DVD. Allahu Akbar. Now, for the generation before then, the millennials and the Gen X, this one saw the VHS, they saw these entertainment gadgets, they saw the CDs, you remember? Then there was the Blu-ray DVDs, those kind of things were crazy about those days. Then to memory cards, then to complete digital world of entertainment via the internet. So these ones, this Gen Z, they are the custodians of downloads. They are the custodians of live streams and customized algorithm. Their communication is dominated by images and short form videos on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and so on and so forth. If there are no images, they are not ready to read anything. You just deceive yourself, wanting them to read what? They don't read long articles. They don't read long things. It is just images. And that's why perhaps Instagram was designed for them. There's also the Snapchat and all of those things they crazy themselves about. What I'm just saying is that these people are tech fluent, but they're also aware of the pitfalls, such as digital burnout and the curated nature of online life. They know that most of the things they see are lies. They know that, well, many of these things are filtered. They even do it by themselves. So you can't deceive them anymore. They know you are not real. I'm talking about these Gen Z people. They know you are not real. They know you are just faking it. They know you are not original. Because even the person that is looking at you, that you are not original, is also not original. So you can't tell them that. They know already. That is the Gen Z. Some kind of youth, you will say. I don't know what's going to become of them. But that Gen Z is not the last. Let me mention another one now. We have Generation Alpha. That's Gen Alpha. The ones that were born between 2013 and 2025. Yes. Even the child you have given birth to this year is Generation Alpha. This Gen Alpha, they are the children of the millennials. You understand it now? They are the children of the millennials and the older Gen Z people. And they were born entirely in the 21st century. Their defining context is still being written. We are still researching about them. In fact, there's a lot we will not even know about them, because their outlook is too early to define now. But they are being raised by more socially conscious parents. Early indicators suggest a normalized view of diversity in all its forms and an expectation for technological integration in all aspects of life. They are growing up with AI assistants, Siri, Alexa, ChatGPT, DeepSeek. This is the normal thing to them as they are growing now. Their education and play are increasingly mediated by screens and interactive technology. These ones will not even experience chalkboard the way you and I grew up. Apart from the chalk, there was this one we use marker board. This one we use marker. Some people still use it up to now. But I'm telling you, this generation alpha people, they will not even know what you want to use marker for if you hold one. They will be like, Daddy, what is that? Things are different now. As far as technology is concerned, they are the fourth generation to be fully AI native. They can swipe on a tablet, it is an intuition for them. And they have these pre-language skills that you will not believe that a child can have. Their world will be defined by voice search, hyper-personalized content, and immersive technologies, AR, VR, from their infancy. Have you observed that a child, I'm talking about this generation alpha, a child that is less than 2 years old can figure out where the games are in your phone? Did you notice that? A 2-year-old child, you give them the phone, they know how to open it. If your phone is passworded, they will know and they will ask for it, they will cry for it. They already have their favorite songs, they already have their favorite shows or cartoons on the TV. At the age of 3, they already know what Netflix is. They already know Prime Video. Allahu Akbar. They already know YouTube at the age of 3. For the conscious Muslims amongst them, amongst their parents, the children already understand online Quran schools, and then they know the apps for memorizing the Quran at age 5. By 5-year-old, they already know where to go to. They know what app to open to memorize the Quran, to read the Quran. All of this, our morning and evening adhkar, they know what to press in the phone. They don't even need to recite it sometimes. The phone will recite it for them. Allah Akbar, you just be like, Asbahna wa asbah al mulku lillah walhamdulillah. They will just press a button and they are listening to it. Go and tell them the fiqh that is not acceptable, and they will look at you and wonder, what generation are you from? Allah Akbar. Now, they listen to these things, some of them recite alongside. I'm talking about 5-year-old child. As parents, if you underrate these kids, you do so at your own jest, because they will so laugh at you and they wonder what is wrong with you. So if you say no, they should not touch the tablet, no, they should not touch the phone, some parents, of course, I don't blame them, they will boastfully say, no, I don't allow my children to have access to phone when they are 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and so on and so forth. Yes, we can say all of that one. Is because you are not educated enough to know what these children need. Honestly, these children, what I'm saying is quite debatable. We can debate it from now to tomorrow. But for what I've observed with this generation alpha, better get the tablet for them, have a child lock system, or get a phone that they can use, get the Muslim app for them that is child friendly, that will teach them what they need to know as little children, the prayer to say when you are entering to the toilet, before you eat, and so on and so forth. You better get those things for them and be ready as a parent to put them through. If not, your children are going to be missing out. They will so miss out to the extent that by the time they are 10 years old, the whole world has left them behind. Take this from me. Because as of today, those topics you thought are too advanced for children, and those questions you thought children are too young to ask, they are asking AI instead, and they wonder why you parents, you are so ignorant. Allahu Akbar. Yes, what I'm saying, you see, those questions you thought are too big for children to ask. You understand? Those questions will be like, no, kids should not be asking this question. Those questions you think are too special, or they are too young to ask, these children will be asking AI instead. They know where Meta AI is, they know what to type, and Meta AI will tell them stuff that you can never answer. They'll just come and be smiling at you because the information you thought you were hiding, they already know. Allah Akbar. A child that is 7 years old is asking you, how are children made? How are babies made? Where do children come from? and you are blabbing, you don't know how to explain, they'll just ask the AI. The AI will tell them everything. They'll come and look at you and say, mommy, you don't even know the answer. Allahu Akbar. Oh, may Allah help us with this generation alpha that we have now. This evolution shows a clear arc from a morality based on traditional authority to the one that is based on individual authenticity and social consensus. From a live approach that is focused on stability to the one that is seeking purpose and well-being. And from technology as an external tool to technology as an inseparable and defining layer of human existence. These children that we are talking about, at the age of 10, they're already asking for the meaning of life. They're already wondering, why are we even in this world in the first place? The kind of toys you thought they would play with and enjoy, I don't think they really enjoy it as much as if you give them a phone. So generally, their parents and whatever generation you belong to, things have changed from what we were expecting to see. Within our own lifetime, we have witnessed changes that the earlier generations could never have imagined. In fact, they could never even imagine what we are experiencing now. And we are giving birth to children into this generation. And we have many youth that belong to this generation. So what do you want them to do? How do you want to educate them? How do you want to enlighten them? How do you want to put them through? And how do you want to understand what's going on in their head? Now, I've mentioned these generations 1 to 6, and I believe that you have learned from the way we have explained. It is broad explanation. And like I said earlier on, there are so many overgeneralizations. But the reality is the youth are not the kind of youth you are thinking about. When we talk about youth, youth are variant. There are various types of youth now, depending on what generation they came from and depending on what experiences they have had in life. My name is Abdul Fattah Adeyemi. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Acquire Abdul Fattah Adeyemi's soul-lifting handmade masterpieces and experience the divine beauty of Islamic artistry. Book counseling and therapy sessions to access a safe space to heal and thrive. Join the community. Transform your life. Edit your universe.